and welcome everybody to our vDiscover experience. This is a track as a part of our VMworld 2020 coming to you virtually this year. We're very excited about the vDiscover track as we offer a lot of insights and perspective from some great community members and a lot of our wonderful partners for you all. This track is intended to provide a lot of education, a lot of knowledge, transfer of knowledge from our partners, our wonderful community members, and VMware as a whole, to give you perspectives and insights into, as VDI administrators or published application administrators, different options that you have, different deployment options that you have, different techniques that you have, how you can grow your career, and so on as a virtual desktop administrator or as a published application administrator. So very excited to have you here. Without further ado, this specific session is going to be focused on enabling remote work with Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop and VMware's Horizon Cloud on Azure. My name is Sachin Sharma. I'm part of the VMware End User Computing Product Marketing team, and I have a speaker here that's going to co-host this with me, Jim Moyle. Jim, if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Thanks very much. So I am a Windows Virtual Desktop Global Black Belt. I work for Microsoft, and I actually came over to Microsoft as part of the FS Logics acquisition, which I know you guys have been doing some really good work integrating with Horizon Cloud. So that's an exciting thing for me.
Awesome. Great to be here with you, Jim. So before we kick things off, I wanted to display just a quick disclaimer slide. I don't believe that there's going to be a whole lot in here that we're sharing that's forward facing, but I always want to put this in here just to make sure that everybody understands about any pricing and packaging that can change and whatnot. So I'll just give you a second just to read through a bit of this disclaimer. And what I'll do next is actually, Jim, just to kick things off, I wanted to hear more of your insights and perspectives in terms of the challenges that you're seeing when it comes to scaling and security for accessing secure corporate resources, as all of a sudden everybody's working from home.
So yeah, it seems like everybody's joined me. I've been working from home for almost 10 years now, and thoroughly enjoying it. The travel that I used to do has somehow reduced over the last few months, but there you go. Remote working is, of course, top of mind for everybody right now, and organizations have either previously been able to cope with remote working, they're already set up, or they're just starting down that journey and find themselves in a situation where now they need to think about this, where previously it was everybody was in the office, right? And now not only they're needing to cope with workers in different locations, they're needing to cope with workers from different devices, maybe untrusted devices, maybe on untrusted networks. This may be brand new for people. And then on top of that, you've got these kind of scaling and capacity issues. How do you ramp up from maybe what was 10% of your users who maybe needed to work from home to 100% of your users? Now, these are problems that, of course, are super relevant now, but these are not new things. These are things that we have coped with before, for whether it's seasonal variation in demand for resource and that sort of thing. So it's something that even if you're new to this, you can rely on the knowledge that we've brought forward from many years of doing this. And we can also help you make sure that as you're coping with these scale and capacity issues, that you don't end up with a runaway budget. That has happened to people recently where they've had to do things quickly. There's that whole thing, right? Quality, price, or speed, and speed's been really important. And what I'm seeing now is people are coming around and essentially looking at things again and saying, okay, well, we did things quickly back in March, and now we're going to do things right. And we're going to look at it a bit closer and see what we can do around budget, see what we can do around correctly resourcing these environments. And the last one, which is of course important, I mentioned that, we could be on random networks, we could be on random devices. How do you ensure that your users and your company and your organization is protected and compliant in terms of security? all of these are super important when you're looking at helping your employees stay productive in a remote working. And Windows Virtual Desktop can help absolutely with all four of these. That enabling work from anywhere on any device, the best way to secure that connection is to make sure that you've got an encrypted connection, right? You've got a client that works on Mac, that works on Windows, that works on iOS, that works on Android. Deploy and scale in minutes. This is the cloud, right? Azure has 56, even more coming on soon, locations around the globe. It has an amazing amount of resource, whether that is GPU enabled, non-GPU enabled, massive VMs, small VMs, and you can spin those up in a matter of minutes in any location around the world, helping you make sure that you can put the resources where it's needed at the time it's needed. Now, you can also make sure that you're only paying for those resources when you need to, okay? Nobody wants to pay for resources when they're not being used. So there's a few different cost models, and we'll talk about cost models in a bit more detail in a second. But you can also modernize your environment, right? There is a refresh rate in terms of hardware within Azure that means that the most cutting edge CPUs, GPUs are available to you at no extra cost whenever you wish them to be so. And it is a super simple matter for you to take a workload running on what was the best in the world 6 months ago and immediately transfer it to what is the best in the world currently. So you can modernize everything about your environment very easily. And your user data, all right? Everything in Azure is encrypted at rest. None of this user data is sitting on a random endpoint that you don't trust, is not provided by you, could have anything on there. So now what you've enabled your users to work from any device, from any network, how many of them you want in whatever part of the world. You've done it cost effectively and you've done it securely. So how do we do all of this? Now that we've seen the problems and what we can solve, like let's get a little, just one step down in terms of how we achieve this. So we all know that one of the big advantages of cloud is that consumption model, that cost-effective way to consume, whether it's storage, compute, or network, right? So compute we talked about, right? Pay as you go for the VMs. Storage, there's also consumption models for storage. So if you're using the FS Logix profiles, for instance, you have SMB storage that you can pay as you go and consume, and the same for network. Now, let's say whether you've got single session VMs or multi-session VMs, nobody needs to have a VM running with nobody doing any work on that VM. This is anathema to your boss. He's going to look at, say, why are we paying for VMs that aren't there? Well, if you look at the ability both from Azure and from Horizon Cloud, it means you can use that scalability to shut down the VMs to save your costs. So you're not paying for that compute as people are not actually being productive. Now then, if you want to avoid upfront costs, then cloud is absolutely key to being able to do that. Right? You can scale up from as small or as large as you want to, and the ability to grow with you is key. But also the ability to, once you've grown, to bring it back in. If you need to scale back in, if your use case for remote working has gone down, you know, your office is back open, your people are back in, you need to be able to bring that down as well and do that in a timely fashion. So the ability to align your expenditure to your usage again is key. Now, we talked just then, we mentioned single session or multi-session. Traditionally, multi-session has been on a server VM. With Azure and WVD, you get something brand new to the industry, which is the ability of a client OS to host a multi-session workload. This means that app compatibility shoots through the roof. You get exactly the same user experience, whether your user's on a laptop, on a desktop in the office, running a VM from your data center, or running a multi-session VM from Azure. It's the same OS, it's the same experience, it's the same management. Windows 10 multi-session is by far, by orders of magnitude, the most popular VM that we see in Azure in WVD. And it just shows what a good job our product team has done in creating something that it has become so runaway successful in the market. I mean, it's 90% of all VMs that we're running in WVD are Windows 10 multi-session. Given that we've got all of these advantages, it must cost you a fortune, right? Well, it turns out that you're probably already licensed for this. So your existing Windows or M365 license, and again, we'll dig a little bit more into this into the next slide, probably already covers you for Windows Virtual Desktop. Not only is Windows 10 multi-session going to give you a better user experience, a better application experience, but it's also going to save you on RDS cows from moving from this multi-session server OS to a multi-session client OS. Now we have to talk about something maybe a little bit awkward for nobody wants to admit it, right? Nobody, if you ask a room and put their hands up, who's got Windows 7 left in their environment, nobody wants to say, I've got loads of Windows 7, but we all know that there's some knocking around. If you are in the unfortunate experience of still having to support a couple of Windows 7 for, a particular app, if you move that OS into Azure, then we can give you that 3 years ESU for free if that Windows 7 OS is part of WVD. Now, if you're used to something where you've got to manage your own brokers and gateways and your other control plane infrastructure, that's no longer the case. Because as you've moved this workload to a proper cloud service, Microsoft is going to manage the underlying infrastructure, so the compute, the storage, the networking. And VMware through Horizon Cloud is going to manage that control plane, the gateways, the brokers, and the load balancers, etc. And combining the both, so being able to take gallery images that Microsoft has patched to the latest version, the image management capabilities that Horizon Cloud brings to Azure makes that admin overhead so much easier. So I said that we'd talk about licensing in a bit more detail. So I'm not going to read every single licensing SKU on here. You're perfectly capable of reading for yourselves, but essentially, if you have some kind of Windows subscription, then you're going to be eligible for WVD already. And most organizations I know are either on a licensing type like this, or they're going to be moving to one of these very shortly. The only exceptions to this, mentioned this before, if you're running a server OS, you still have to pay for your RDS cows with an active SA. Yet another reason that you should be looking at Windows 10 multi-session to avoid that additional RDS cow licensing. You're paying only for the VMs. As part of WVD, you do not pay for the OS, so that saves you 30% on the VMs. Storage and networking, you can all do as a consumption-based pricing. You can do reserved instances. You don't have to do consumption-based pricing for your VMs. 1 or 3 year reserved instances payment is available, saves you, up to 72%, and you can pay for that monthly too. Hopefully, that's been a good overview on WVD, and I'm going to hand over to Sachin now to talk a little bit more about Horizon Cloud on top of WVD.
Thank you so much, Jim. That was a great introduction, an overview of Windows Virtual Desktop. And what I want to do is spend a little bit of time of showing you the value of how you can combine Horizon Cloud on Azure plus Windows Virtual Desktop and all the great benefits that Jim just explained to you. I think we're all, as organizations, thinking about, what can I do to leverage cloud more? How can I use cloud resources? So accelerating the cloud adoption plus cost savings and providing the best user experience is really what we're gearing towards proactively and jointly, that Microsoft and VMware are coming together to provide this joint solution of Horizon Cloud on Azure plus Windows Virtual Desktop. It's really, thinking about how can we accelerate time to value, starting with that base infrastructure as a service layer of Microsoft Azure, and then adding more and more on top of that stack. So providing desktop as a service through Horizon Cloud on Azure so that you as customers or any organization does not have to worry about managing the infrastructure that's already taken care of by Microsoft, or any of the Horizon layer that sits on top of that, the Horizon Cloud layer that's managed all by VMware. All you have to do is think about, from a desktops and app standpoint, updating and patching, and even then you can relinquish that over to partners as well. You're used to using Microsoft tools, you're used to using VMware tools, you're going to have that common understanding of using that same feature set across both of these solutions. And as Jim mentioned, 56 global locations that Azure already has. It's a fantastic footprint, and that's growing, and that's what Horizon Cloud on Azure can take advantage of too. When it comes to cost savings specifically, we think about the wonderful Windows 10 multi-session, for example, as being the core part of that cost savings. But the more and more that we can provide value in terms of application delivery, one-to-many application deployment, dynamic environment management, profile and policy management, all of these can be combined together to give you and maximize your cost savings instead of having to rely on third-party tools. When we have features built in, which we already do as a part of Horizon Cloud on Azure, that provides even additional cost savings in terms of power management, for example. Jim mentioned, you pay as you go, pay for what you need, but what if you were able to shrink that even further in terms of looking at variations of, are users actually using the VMs? And if they're not, why not just power them off? That's what Horizon Cloud on Azure can bring to you. And finally, from a user experience standpoint, the platform integrations that we have with Windows Virtual Desktop and Horizon, such as FSLogix, as well as Dynamic Environment Manager, really help give that perfect user experience in terms of being able to rely on profiles and policies to really drive great user experience no matter what client you're using. iOS, Android, Windows 10, Mac OS, you name it and we can probably support it. That's the consistency that we can provide. And the consistent experience can actually evolve even beyond just Horizon Cloud on or virtual desktops and published applications. You can actually access SaaS-based apps, web-based apps, Windows applications, all directly from our Workspace ONE Intelligent Hub, which we won't cover a whole lot of in here, but just know that that's available as well. So I like this image and graphic that I'm about to show you to really show you, okay, with your deployment, when you're thinking about deploying Windows Virtual Desktop, you get the benefits of already having the existing licensing in place from Microsoft, most likely. You get the benefit of having that client OS with the Windows 10 Enterprise multi-session and that investment that you've already incurred inside of Azure. But we can take that to the next level by providing removing the need for third-party tools for application management, for monitoring, for dynamic, for policy and profile management. All of that gets thrown out of the window because now we have Horizon Cloud on Azure that'll just kind of put the cherry on top of the Windows Virtual Desktop deployment. If you're thinking hybridity, like a lot of customers are thinking, then this is where absolutely Horizon Cloud can help. With Windows Virtual Desktop, the game plan there is really to have that all hosted on inside of a Microsoft Azure cloud. But if you're thinking about on-premises or even other types of clouds, this is where we can bring that hybridity to you with Horizon Cloud on Azure. Cost optimizations, as I mentioned, with power management, that's a big one that a lot of our customers are gravitating towards, using Horizon Cloud on Azure that can really bring down the cost per user per month. And finally, the enhanced user experience, which I touched upon a little bit, that great consistent user experience across any device, no matter what you're accessing, whether it's a Teams instance, a Zoom instance, different applications that we support on Linux. That's all available with Horizon Cloud on Azure once you stack that on top of Windows Virtual Desktop. So those are the capabilities that we feel like this is just a very winning combination for you to bring back to your organization and really think about, is this what I can do to provide secure access to my corporate resources via Horizon Cloud on Azure and Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop. Now, I've touched upon a lot of the details in those 4 pillars, but just to reiterate the value that Horizon Cloud on Azure really brings to the table for Windows Virtual Desktop, it's removing the need for those third-party tools, having cloud-based monitoring, having universal brokering, so you have one single URL to log into any of your hybrid deployments or hosts. That's great from an end user standpoint, so they don't have to worry about, hey, I'm working out of Seattle today, or I'm working out of Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Hopefully I'll get the same user experience no matter what I'm logging into. IT can provide that by using Horizon Cloud on Azure. I mentioned the hybridity. We're able to take advantage of all the different Azure capacity and across the different regions globally, as well as the cost optimization that we're providing, not only with advanced UI features that are all available that we've been building into Horizon Cloud on Azure year after year after year, but also through power management, through enhanced image management capabilities. Use one image, manage that image, deploy that image across all of your different deployment options that you have. And then finally, complete, full, featured in terms of consistent and enhanced user experience, whether that's with GPU workloads and NVIDIA, for example, or optimized Teams experience that we just released with Horizon, our recent launch of Horizon 8. All of that is possible with our portfolio of our VMware Horizon. Now I'll leave you with kind of my last my slide here, and really the architecture. And this I've also touched upon a little bit. If you gravitate towards the icons and images on the right, you'll notice what is managed by you as a customer or an admin versus what Microsoft and VMware manage. So infrastructure, that's all controlled by Microsoft. They do a great job and been doing it for years around managing the compute, the storage, the networking. The layer above, the Horizon layer, and the gateways that are associated with it, the clients, the universal broker, load balancing, you leave that up to VMware. VMware will manage that for you. And that's what we provide as a precursor to desktop as a service and application as a service. And then for you, it's really up to you. Do you want to manage full desktops? Do you want to manage published applications, networking policies? Again, either you could do this, or we have a great set of other partners that are MSP-based, managed service providers that can help you with this too. So all of this, in a nutshell, is made possible by our Horizon control plane to give you the app management piece, the universal broker piece, the image management piece, and so on and so forth. Hopefully this gives you just a quick rundown of our architecture that we have provided with Windows Virtual Desktop, Horizon Cloud on Azure, and what you as a customer need to be thinking about in managing. I'll leave you with some resources that you can absolutely visit for more information. And I know these sessions are fairly quick. They're meant to give you an introduction and an overview, and in this case of Windows Virtual Desktop and Horizon Cloud on Azure. Definitely take us for a test drive, trial us. We have a lot of great articles and technical information available on techzone.vmware.com. And if you get a chance, attend the other additional vDiscover sessions. We have community folks that are providing their learnings after testing Horizon. We have deep forward-looking AI, ML, deep learning, and GPU types of sessions. How through a community roundtable, you'll be able to further your skill set as a VDI admin. You can even talk to Sean Bass as our CTO and just fire away with questions towards him, as well as architecting for success. With that said, Jim, any last minute comments?
No, I'd recommend a couple of those sessions. Carl Webster is an old friend of mine. He has some excellent blogs on testing Horizon, so really recommend that. And Sean Bass, I would say, always good value. Go and listen to Sean. He's a great guy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. Thanks everybody for attending. I hope you all have a great rest of the VM world.
Thank you.